Welcome to the first payroll seminar that I have done, so bear with me. I have Deuteronomy 25:15 up as a start because it is a great passage to hold us accountable through the ages. It's a great one to keep on your screen and remember that what we're doing this process payroll for. Just a little bit about me. I live in Modesto. I go to the Modesto Free Methodist Church. I've been married for 38 years. I have 2 boys, 5 grandchildren, and I just feel very blessed that I can serve God first through my family and then my church and now through the conference. It's been a real joy, this process. I have been doing church books for 21 years, and I am going to stress that I am not an accountant. If you're new to payroll, let me back up. I'm not an accountant, and I've learned by trial and error, and I'm just not settling for the phrase, this is how we've always done it. I've always questioned and searched out the answers. So if we have an accounting question, we have a couple of sources to do that. If you're new to payroll or been doing payroll for years, my objective this evening is to ripple your knowledge pool of payroll and bring any questions or thoughts about this process to the surface and help you make it more efficient. We may not cover every detail tonight, so I am letting you know right now that I am willing to meet with you, discuss your concerns and issues, and help you find solutions. And so you can email me, call me, we can Zoom, I can come meet you. It's whatever it takes to get that work. This is all being done to make our churches successful and productive and great disciples. It's a important support for them, and it's also to keep payroll is to keep our employees happy and have them feel valued and satisfied, and also rendering under Caesar his dues. So there's a lot of importance just for one little task that sometimes seems menial. I have a resource guide available. It'll be published on the web probably by next week. I'm not quite sure when we're going to get that up, but it'll be by next week. You can email me and I'll send it to you. So the first thing I'd like to do is remind everybody that even though you do devotions and your prayers in the morning, read your scriptures, when you sit down at your desk to start your busy day as a bookkeeper or a treasurer or your finance committee, remember to just pause and give who we ultimately work for and who is in control the reins. There have been many times that I've been stuck searching for a solution, and whoa, V8 moment, I get up, take a break, say a prayer, give it to God, maybe overnight, maybe a couple hours, and voila, the solution is there, or where to go for the solution. So it's always important to get started on the right foot when you're working with numbers and problems. The payroll process is very involved, and the first recommendation is to know your limitations and then try to find staff support to help you with that. Payroll can be costly, and we need to consider not only the actual cost of wages that are going out and the software, but the hidden overhead costs in manpower, time to process, time to review, correct errors, and train personnel. So there's a lot of decisions need to be made, and to make the process efficient in time and money for you. Also, you're adding on an HR hat with employees' rights, and you're juggling a plethora of details to be implemented in managing staff. So there's a lot of details going on there. If you're lacking in any of these areas, errors will happen, and they can be timely and costly to correct. Some of the errors can be hidden for a month or 2 months if you don't look at your bank reconciliation or your check stubs and look at notices for tax payments and whatnot. So it's a big area. You just need to keep digging. The payroll process is varied from church to church and even with each employee. So keep asking, reading, and seeking. There's immense knowledge on the web. Most sites want to sell you a product, but they also have valuable information for free. The IRS and EDD have numerous resources for you to use. My resource guide is up to 7 pages long. and it hasn't even begun to cover all the details, but everything that I'm talking about tonight will have a smattering of information on the resource guide so you can dig deeper. I must stress that even though you have everything in place, you're the one that is responsible to look at the final results and be able to see if something is right or wrong. So the more you work with the payroll, the cleaner you set it up, the more frequently you check it. Again, you are responsible for the errors, no matter how you're processing it or outsourcing it. And sometimes payroll can feel overwhelming, frustrating, and you can feel really inept. But payroll can be quick and easy at times, and then a quagmire of numbers at other times. So the better you know the process and spend more time with it, there will be times you'll just want to turn the worship music up and press on. One of the big rules is to not be afraid to seek as much help as possible. Payroll consists of 2 broad knowledge domains, 2 hats for you to wear. The first hat that you will wear is the most important and the most active, and that's the actual payroll process. These activities include human resource management, accounting functions, knowing benefits, sick leave rules, vacation calculations, family leave, harassment policies, termination process, and many other things are keys of your payroll activities. The second hat that you would be wearing is the legal compliance requirements. These are less familiar to people, and these impose regulations on the first parts of your activity. There are 2 links on my resource guide that will give you a good idea of what compliance looks like. So I would strongly suggest that you read those. Next thing we're going to do is take a little poll to get to know you. Superintendent Mark's going to put the poll up, and you're going to take a minute and process that. And we've got some cheesy music to entertain you while you're filling out your...
By cheesy music, Diane means that she's going to sing a song for us.
I'm not kidding. This is cheesy Nintendo elevator music.
That's not American money either.
Okay, we're ending the polling.
I'm ending the music, and it looks like 40% of you have never done payroll. So you are, you're going to benefit probably the most from this. The people that have done payroll before, again, I want to just stir it up. I want you to think about your process and find out if there's any areas that you need to improve on or to clean up on. For those of you that have never done payroll, there are numerous ways. You can do it paper and pencil. It can be done. It's relatively simple if you have all the information set up. If you have 1 or 2 employees that have deductions, and maybe you love the abacus and the slide rule, this would be just easy for you. The next step up would be using an online payroll calculator. It is a one-time thing. It doesn't store information, so you would put the numbers in, it calculates the payroll, you would print out the screen, and then generate your check and your pay stub from that. Excel is possible. There's no specific spreadsheet or template to calculate payroll, but there are a number of YouTube videos and tutorials that would show you how to set up a spreadsheet to store that information. So you would take the online calculator information, put it in the Excel spreadsheet, and then turn around, put it into a check for your employees, or put it in a tax report. So it can be done. I did it for 2 years, so it wasn't too bad until you did a typo and had to go back and find the errors. Most people use self-payroll, which is connected electronically with your financial software. If you're using QuickBooks or you're using Sage, which used to be Peachtree. The payroll software connects to the financial software, and they keep the tax amounts updated for you. They process your tax reports. They generate the checks and have them ready to be paid. And then they remind you to generate your tax reports and your tax payments. The issue with this one is you're doing most of the manual work. You're keeping track of vacation and sick time. You have to click submit to the payroll to get it to generate a check and get it to log in to be on your tax reports. And then you have to go in on a timely manner, print out the report and print out the payments, then click submit on those two. There are full service and outsourcing payroll systems or payroll companies. These are helpful if you've never done payroll before. The problem is you are still responsible for all the outcome. They are usually more expensive. Generally, they are accurate, but they still, if they have a new employee that doesn't know what they're doing, they can create errors, and that's your responsibility to know what to look for. And I have some resources later on down. So automation and outsourcing can help with the lack of expertise, but automation can hide errors if you don't know what your end result should be. So one of the resources I have here is an article on how to read your pay stub. And this will help you to look at the pay stub and know what's supposed to be there, where deductions are, where vacation is, and how that works. And that way you will know when you're looking at your payroll that you've generated what's right and what's wrong, and then be able to also teach your employees to look at their pay stubs and know what's going on. So we're going to just take a little bit here right now, and if there's any questions that have popped up that we would like to address.
Hey everybody, if you have any questions, feel free to type those into the group chat session, which again, you can find the chat button as the balloon at the bottom of your screen, of your Zoom screen. So if you have any questions, go ahead and type them in. And if you don't, that's fine. We got a lot of material and we can move on as well.
So it looks like everybody's just anxious to get on with it. So the next slide is your considerations at the start. If you're either starting to set up a payroll system or you're making changes. We talked about counting the cost. Well, the costs now let you consider the actual tasks involved. You probably have these established. It is good to review the basics and see if there are any areas that need attention. And the first is, who's going to oversee this area? Who's going to become the expert in your office or your church to monitor, to supervise, and know what's working and what's not? I've always just been given the books. Here they are, figure them out. It's somebody's left, on short notice, and so it's been a learning curve, but that's why I'm here with the conference now, is to be able to get together with you and help you do that. Then once you figure out who's overseeing it, you need to have a backup plan if your software fails, especially if you use on PC, like PC, QuickBooks for PC, where it's not in the cloud, stored in the cloud. Because if the computer fails or your software on the PC fails, you need to still generate payroll on a timely manner and be able to generate paychecks and pay stubs with the withholding deductions and all of that. My software is QuickBooks Online, so if I had a computer failure, I would just switch computers. I have never in my 21 years had QuickBooks fail on me. I've never had them. They've been maybe shut down for upgrades, but I've never had it where I've gone in and then all of a sudden it's not working, and change computers and it's still not working. QuickBooks has been very reliable, and once you get used to it, it's pretty easy to keep up with. If QuickBooks go down, my backup would be using an online paycheck calculator and then storing the information in a spreadsheet until I can input it into QuickBooks. Payroll is usually on a strict timeline. You've got payroll pay period schedules. And so you need to know in advance how much time it takes for you to process that payroll before you deliver the paycheck or the direct deposit. Most payroll softwares, even in the self payroll software, takes 2 working days. So if you have payroll scheduled for the 15th and the 30th, you need to look at your calendar every month and figure out what days 15 and 30 fall on, what's 2 working days ahead, and when are you going to be working to get that payroll out. With the payroll services that are connected to your financial online or to your financial package, generally you can create the payroll in advance. I work Wednesdays and Thursdays for the conference, and I work Tuesday for Modesto. So in Modesto, I do payroll every other Tuesday. That's how we've got it scheduled, bi-monthly, and then it's twice a month for the conference. So the conference, I look at my schedule, and I can do payroll mostly on Thursdays, but sometimes I have to juggle it to work it on another day to make sure that it gets delivered on time. So there's a few things. Besides your schedule, the last thing you need to know is the storage of important employee files. There's social security numbers in there. You may have a copy of their passport in there. You may have addresses, phone numbers, but even the social security number is critical enough. So you want to protect that. You can have a locked office, which we have in the Modesto office, a locked filing cabinet, which I have in my home office here for the conference. And in the Modesto office, we even had a safe in our office, but realized that even that is not enough. Our church was broken into on a Sunday morning. They didn't take much. They took a couple things out of pastor's office, electronics, and nothing out of the business office, and left. So I got really suspicious and panicky and decided to move everything into the safe. I emptied the locked filing cabinet, put everything into the safe, blank checks into the safe, and the next Sunday they came in and they stole the safe. It was bolted to the cement 4 inches down, and they took everything. So here I am subscribing to LifeLock for employees and stopping checks and the whole crazy business. If I'd have left it in the file cabinet, it would have been fine. So the next thing you need to do is identify employees. There's 4 different categories, and the first one we're going to talk about is the independent contractor. The independent contractors may save you some on Social Security and Medicare taxes. It's a little faster to process their check, but there are strict guidelines on who is an independent contractor, and incorrectly classifying an employee can cause them to not receive some of the benefits that they would get if they were an employee, such as overtime or family medical leave. Independent contractors are self-employed. They receive the scope of the job and then dictate the schedule they work to meet the agreed time frame you wanted in. They are not told how to do the job, and they pay their own taxes. A written agreement is critical to keep the quality of the work you solicited with an independent contractor. The employer can only control the quality or the result of the job, not the method through which the work is done. So say you're hiring an independent contractor to come in and do your payroll. If they only know how to do it in Excel, that may not be sufficient for you. So you need to interview them sufficiently and have a written agreement that once they put it in Excel, you want them to turn around and put it in your QuickBooks software or something. So it's a little bit different with independent contractors. When the worker is an employee, the payer can mandate the output, mandate how the output occurs, and in a particular place and in a certain time. So a business owner has more control over the completion of the job. Our next employee classification is pastors. Pastors are not bivocational, dual, what is it called? Dual employees.
They have a dual status as employees.
Sorry, I had that written down and then I lost it. So, but for pastors, the first thing you want to do is go to the Sierra Pacific Conference Guide for Ministerial and Staff Compensation Guide. And on page 3, it is going to give you a great description of what is a pastor, what isn't. And I'm not going to go through a lot of this because the time is getting by faster than we want. For our purposes, the pastor is generally hired with a flat compensation rate package, which is determined by the church BOA and the superintendent. The finance committee then plans increases during budgeting, year-end budgeting. The pastor determines how this is to be split out, what goes to housing allowance, what goes to reimbursable packages and whatnot, and then you have to set up his W-2 to reflect that. And again, the compensation guide is very detailed and complete to help you with that. The next is going to be your standard. You're going to have to decide whether they're hourly versus salary. Salary is generally administrative or supervisory positions. Hourly positions are just standard, come in, they have a set tasks to do and certain jobs that you expect from them. The words exempt and non-exempt will be discussed later. This is in connection to overtime. So with these employees, there's numerous forms. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot the volunteer. The volunteer is probably one of the more important because they will have an expertise and come in and make your job easier. In our office, we have volunteers in our office all the time because they're trying to develop their skill set. And a lot of times they have enough potential that we'll hire them, train them, and they'll stay with us for a couple of years before they get a better job and a better position. Volunteers must be covered under your workman's comp policy. So when you get workman's comp, you need to add volunteers to that policy. Then there's the forms for a new hire. And then the conference, again, in the compensation policy handbook on page 17, it has a list of new hires. In my resource guide, I have all the forms linked so that you can just click on it and pull up the forms. I keep a folder of all those blank forms as if it was ready to go for a new hire. That way, when somebody comes in, I have it ready. I just have to download the W-4 that needs to be renewed. There's labor law posters. They're required. There's a link in the reference guide that will take you to a website. This one listed on the slide. It takes you to this website and you put in where you're at, and it will give you various languages as well as let you know all the posters that you need to be posting in the in your office. And I have to be honest, I probably have not read the whole poster in quite some time. I know there's workman comp information and salary information and harassment information and whistleblowing information, but I haven't read it. So this was supposed to be a joke. It's a bookkeeper is having a hard time sleeping, goes to the doctor, and the doctor says, well, have you tried counting sheep? And the bookkeeper says, that's the problem. I made a mistake and then spent 6 hours trying to find it. So I put this in as a joke, but unfortunately, it is a fact of life for a bookkeeper, payroll clerk, anybody that works in an office with numbers. It's just one of those bugaboos. So now you're all set up, you've got your taxes and payroll, you've your software, and I know I'm going fast through this, but I will be there to help you if you give me a call. Next part about preparing payroll is your time cards. There are so many ways to do it. Paper and pencil. Excel has a lot of templates that aren't quite good enough, so you're always editing those. In my office in Modesto, we finally went to an app on the phone, and it's really great because we have one other staff person. She emails me her app. I go over it, question her on what if some things are accurate or not, and then turn it into a paycheck. So it's really cut time down considerably. Superintendent Mark uses the Time Recording Pro, and I use Hours Tracker. And I don't think I paid for my Hours Tracker. I think that one was free. So there are a lot of time card softwares out there. If you want to pay for it, there's time card information that is integrated with QuickBooks, but they just haven't really done the job. So I would just go with the app and then put the information. Your next step is processing and printing The payroll, just again, make sure that you look at your schedule and have enough working days to process it on time to deliver it. Pay stubs are required by law. So you need to either generate a 2-part check when you print them, or a 3-part check like I do, or you print a separate paycheck. If you write out their paychecks, then just print out the breakdown that you have and give it to the staff on whether it's in Excel or in QuickBooks or whatever. If you're direct deposit, I just scan them and email them to the staff. QuickBooks does have a site where that you can log in and pull up your own pay stubs, which would suffice. Employee files, there's a resource in the resource guide, and it has all the requirements of what needs to be kept in an employee file. Pastor's pay, we are going to go flip by really quickly. You need to track vacation and sick leave on pastor's pay. That's probably the most important item that I can recommend. If a pastor leaves the church and says he has 6 weeks vacation and you haven't been tracking, there's no argument. You pay him for the 6 weeks. So you need to keep track of that. And then the housing allowance would go in box 14 of the W-2, and I can help you set that up. So employees pay, you need to decide on the hourly rate, flat rate or salary, your policies on sick leave, vacation, any of miscellaneous deductions and whatnot is going to be in your employee handbook. And that's a whole nother roundtable topic of discussion we can have. Here's where you decide, are they exempt or not exempt? That would be in your employee handbook. Modesto offers a 403B availability. You can sign up to have a 403B contribution, which is a profit sharing plan, and the church is not required to contribute, but it's a nice aspect to have for the employees. Let's see, I'm kind of skipping through some of this to termination. If you terminate an employee, you are required to pay them at the point of leaving. The state of California says accrued time, vacation time, sick time, unless it's otherwise stated in your handbook. The handbook is the first law and then can be followed up. And then the last part is going to be on overtime. California has 2 rules. First, it's over 8 hours in a day. Second, it's over 40 hours in a week. And you do not pay the employee both times. You only pay the mostly the week time, because that's where they're going to go over. But let's say part-time, I work 10 hours one day and then I work 3 days and go over 40 hours a week. You're not going to pay me 2 hours on the 10-hour day and then 12 hours on the 52-hour day. You're going to pay me just the one time of overtime. There's also a thing on comp time that's in the resource guide. That's if, and that's mostly for salaried people. It's actually not legal, but it's done a lot. So I have a resource on that also. And are there any questions in that 30 minutes of whisking over payroll?
That was a fabulous presentation, Diane. So if anybody has a question, feel free to type it into the chat room. There's a question for you, Diane, and it comes from Valerie. Does salary have to be 2 times minimum wage?
There was actually a document that Superintendent Mark sent to me today, and it discussed that the thresholds are raised as of 2000 and 2020, and I put it in my resource document. And that I actually don't know. The resource document, I didn't just put a link to it. I didn't put a minimum. So I have to look that up because I haven't looked that up. I guess because I've never gotten salary, I haven't thought about it.
I might just add that there is a minimum annual amount of pay that's
Right.
required before somebody can be called exempt. However, it's not 2 times minimum wage. So the answer, Valerie, to your question specifically is no. And Diane will get that amount out as part of the resources we put online when this is over. Great question. Hey, Rich has a good question too. He says, I have a form made and I fill it out. Is that good enough? And that's in reference to pay stubs. So Diane, is it sufficient to fill out a form as a pay stub?
Yes, as long as you copy to the employee and you keep a copy. And then it has to match, you have to match that all up to your W-4s at the end of the year. So the math is critical on those things.
That's great. Hey, Robin has a question too, although I think her question might be answered well from the Ministerial Compensation Manual. The question is, how do you track vacation, sick time, paid time off for your pastors who are salaried exempt employees?
Well, they're still going to get a paycheck for their salary and their housing amount. So they'll be on a W-2. And there is a slot there to put in how much vacation they have for the year or have accrued over a period of, and you actually have to keep track of that number and put it in every year. And then as they take it, there's a slot to say vacation spot in the payroll software that will subtract it and keep track of it for you. And it actually is nice because it does the math calculations in the wages part. You just put the time in and it calculates the wages down, takes it from standard wage to a vacation wage.
That's super. And also, Robin, there are specific guidelines for the amount of time a pastor can take off for vacation and paid time. Diane had some really good tips about using software to track time or to even track time with time cards. And that's a really helpful thing to engage. I might add as superintendent that pastors who actually lead churches and are essentially a church CEO should still be accountable to the board or the board of finance, depending how the church wants to identify that, in order to report their vacation time, sick time off, personal days, and things of that nature. That way there's some good checks and balances. Hey, Diane, Rich asks another question. He says, all of our employees are part-time. Is there a maximum number of hours that they're allowed to work?
Well, not on a part-time. 40 hours obviously is full-time. And so anything under that, 35 or 25 is usually considered part-time. And if you
I believe you can be considered a full-time employee if you work over 32 hours.
32.
So under 32 would be part-time technically.
And then if you have special projects and you stay on and work extra time for that, then they can still be considered, part-time employees. They just need to be paid appropriately and paid for overtime.
Exactly right. Good job. Hey, Pauline has a question too. She asks, is a 403B a required option for employees, even though the church is not required to contribute?
No, a 403B is just a side benefit. It is a tax-deferred retirement account that they can have part of their wages put into. That the part about having a 403B is the church is then required to keep track of that amount and write a check monthly to be deposited into their retirement plan. Does that make sense? So it's a side benefit and a choice of the church and whether you want to do the work or not.
Great job. Hey, the last question that I have seen here is that Valerie asks, are we going to cover health insurance requirements? And
we didn't tonight, so we can put it on another one or you and I can chat.
Yeah, that is beyond the scope of what we're doing tonight. Certainly, if you have specific questions, you can ask us offline. On March 26th, we'll be handling reimbursement strategies, but I think we're going to add insurance strategies to that as well. That's a super critical question, and Valerie, I'm glad you asked it. We have another opportunity, I believe, to move on to part 2 of our webinar tonight relating to pension. So I'm going to ask if Lori Coons can load up her program, and we are going to get started with that.
Hi, everybody. I am Lori. I am your conference administrator. I have learned a lot about the pension plan, other than just having the pastor sign up in the last several weeks. And I'm looking forward to sharing this with you. What we do is we serve those who have served God's people so faithfully as we continue to work together in the body of Christ. People are our most valued resource. Because of that, our purpose of our denominational plan, we provide a retirement income with options for beneficiary benefit, death, and disability. The FMC USA Benefit Plan services consist of a board of administration that governs the pension plan, and they oversee the benefits committee that administers the pension plans, and the Free Methodist Foundation that is the investment service for the plan. And then the overall umbrella of the whole thing is Human Resources Department at the World Ministry Center. They resource their accounting, information, research, and record keeping, and a vital source of information. Willadine's a great resource. This is a defined benefit plan. Benefit is paid based on the formula using years of service and career average compensation. And the local church responsibility is to pay into the pension plan that is based on 13.5% of the pastor's compensation. That is an important number for you to remember. 13.5 of the pastor's compensation. So what is compensation? Salary plus housing, Social Security, and tax-deferred annuities. Some of the things salary or compensation is not is insurance premiums, mileage, travel, professional or educational expenses, and it does not include medical unless there is a Section 125 cafeteria tax-free reimbursement program. And I believe that has to be set up ahead of time. But Willadine will be the expert on that part, but do keep it in mind. Anybody have any questions at this point? Use your chat function. You have any questions? So who's eligible? Those who are to be enrolled in the defined benefit plan must be receiving compensation and be either an ordained appointed pastor to a local church or church plant, a conference superintendent, or a ministerial candidate appointed as a senior pastor to a local church or church plant. Also must be employed for at least 25 hours a week or work full-time for an annual conference office, the Free Methodist Foundation, or the World Ministry Center. Local church employees based on church board approval, and last, Visa Voyager optional based on funding. The current plan formula. These are kind of dry, and you're going to want to go back and look at these to make sure that your pastor is going to do what he's going to do. Normal retirement age is 67, but early retirement can begin as early as 62. Career-based average, that's your annual average of the participant's compensation each year. The formula is 1.5% multiplied by the career-based average compensation. The numbers. Each year, the formula calculation is added to your benefit. See the numbers. 0.015 times 3,500 equals $52.50 times 33 years, making a benefit of $1,732.50. Accrued monthly benefit at age of 67 will then be the $1,732.50. The 0.015 times 3,500 equals $52.50 times 30 year, 1,575. Accrued monthly benefit at the age of 67. The $1,575 times 1/180th equals $8.75 times 36 months, which equals $315. 36 months based on the number of months between the ages of 64 and 67. Accrued benefit payable at 64 would be $1,260. If there's a termination of employment, you will receive a deferred vested statement showing any accrued benefit payable at the time of termination. If you are rehired within 5 years, prior vesting and credited service will be reinstated. If you are rehired after being terminated for more than 5 years, you will keep the prior benefit and will begin to accrue a new benefit. The death benefit. The options before retirement. You must choose to receive one of these options. An actuarial equivalent lump sum, which would be calculated at the time of request, or you choose to receive a monthly benefit beginning at the participant's earliest retirement age. This benefit would be calculated as if the participant had retired, choosing the option that provides a joint and 1/2 to survivor income. The joint and 1/2 to survivor income would continue through the survivor's lifetime. A lump sum of $2,000 death benefit after retirement would be in addition to any prior selected survivor benefits. Retirement options. You can choose a monthly income for life, only $1,732.50. A monthly benefit will be paid during your lifetime with no benefit payments after your death, or a monthly life income and payments guaranteed for 120 months at 10 years for $1,606.89. A monthly benefit will be paid during your lifetime, and if 120 payments have not been paid at the date of your death, the remaining payments will be paid to your designated beneficiary. A third retirement option would be a joint and 1/2 to survivor income. The participant would get $1,577 and the beneficiary $788.82. A monthly benefit will be paid during your lifetime and after your death. An amount equal to 1/2 of such payment will continue to your joint annuitant for the extent of his or her lifetime. And then your last two options is a joint and 2/3 to survivor income. Your participant could get $1,530.31. Whoops, sorry. And the beneficiary $1,020.20. A monthly benefit will be paid during your lifetime, and after your death, the amount equal to 2/3 such payment will continue to your joint annuitant during his or her lifetime. And then the last option is a joint and full to survivor income of $1,446.14. Now, this is just an example number. This might not be your exact number. It depends on your income and how long it's been going in. A monthly benefit would be paid as long as either you or your joint annuitant survives. Are there any questions about that? Because I'm not sure I could actually go back and be clear on that, but Willa Dean, who is the Director of Human Resources for the Free Methodist Church at the World Ministry Center, is a font of just absolute information, and she loves to hear from the churches, and she's more than glad to be of assistance if it's something that I can't clarify. Clergy allowance for retirees. It is so, let's see, I think I forgot one thing. Okay, if you are an ordained retiree drawing a pension benefit, you are eligible to classify your monthly retirement earnings as housing allowance. This is a really big perk, and you need to pay attention to that. Based on the Internal Revenue Code Section 107, in the case of a minister of the gospel, gross income does not include the housing allowance paid to the minister as part of the minister's compensation to the extent it is used to provide a home. And each year, the board approves up to 100% of pension benefits as housing. And then this is the phone call that you get from me the most. Every year after your society meetings, if your pastor has had any change whatsoever in salary, marital status, beneficiary information, address changes, or changes in their status with the Free Methodist Church, they need to fill out a change of status form. As their treasurer or secretary or staff member, you need to help prompt them to make sure that they do this regularly. Also, in May, June, when we have annual conference, if there's a change in pastoral staff, that's another time to make sure this gets looked at. This helps us keep your salary and employment history up to date and keep your local church contribution billings current. All forms can be found on the fmcusa.org website by going to Ministries and then down to Human Resources, and then all the forms and everything you need are right there. Some of the forms can be done online, or you can print them and send them in snail mail or fax them, whatever you want to do. They make it very easy to take care of all this paperwork. Planning for the present and future. Resources are available from your denomination, as I've already said. Human Resources provide estimated retirement calculations, financial profile by GuideStream Financial, free to all participants. Human Resources, check it out. And there's the website. Legal resources and forms are all there. Questions on clergy taxes, employment issues, compensation. You can call the Human Resources line and ask for anybody in the Human Resources Department. Doesn't just always have to be Willadine. She has very competent staff. And then if you can't remember which website I told you to go to, you can always contact the three of us at our names at theundeniableblessing.org. Are there any questions? That's it. That's the end of my presentation. Dry as it is, that's what it is, a necessary thing.
That's fantastic. Hey, Lori, stop sharing your screen for just a minute and we'll say hi and bye to everybody face to face. Hey, everybody, thank you so much for being part of the webinar tonight. The next one is on November 21. We'll be talking about taxes and timelines. It's not just employee and payroll taxes, but how do you avoid getting socked with property taxes and things of that nature in relation to your church, your not-for-profit status, and all of those happy things. Well, thank you, everybody. Again, by all means know that Diane, Lori, and we are here to serve you. Just call us anytime. If you have any questions that we can't answer, we'll be happy to demonstrate how we can't answer them with a smile. That was a joke. Lord Jesus, bless everybody. Have a great night, and we'll see you around.